It's election day. The polls just closed, and now you're wearing your I voted sticker while anxiously watching Steve Kornacki tap at a screen and tell you who the next president of the United States is going to be. I, like so many others, was cautiously optimistic. I mean, we knew what the polls were telling us, but certainly there weren't enough people still falling in line behind a guy who was impeached twice, indicted dozens of times for trying to influence the election, found guilty on 34 felony counts related to paying off a porn star to influence an election, found liable for sexual abuse, claimed he would implement mass deportation as well as criminally prosecute his political rivals, right? But as the votes kept coming in, the picture became clearer and clearer. Donald J. Trump will be the 47th president of the United States. We are in an unprecedented time in American history. Not only have we elected a president to 2 non-consecutive terms for only the second time, but we have elected the first convicted felon president. Well, not the first rapist president, allegedly. He is the first president to be found liable of sexual abuse in a court of law. I am just utterly blown away by the amount of people in this country either too ignorant, too stupid, too sexist, or too racist to prevent a billionaire only using the presidency to enrich himself from holding power. Maybe some of them voted for the first time. I personally know some who cast their ballot for him for the 3rd time. The top 2 issues that exit pollers found that mattered most to voters was the economy and democracy. So let's start by talking about the economy. The 3 major factors that tell us how the economy is doing are unemployment, GDP, and inflation. Following the recession of 2008, the unemployment rate had been on a steady decline, thanks in part to policies implemented by President Obama that helped lift us out of that recession. Trump inherited a 4.6% unemployment rate, and to his credit, continued that downward trend until it hit an all-time low of 3.5% in February 2020. Then, thanks in part to the pandemic, it skyrocketed to 14.8% in April 2020. The unemployment rate would not return to that all-time low until May 2022, more than a year into Biden's term. Unemployment has stayed steady since, sitting at 4.1% as of the most recent data in October of 2024. Now, let's look at GDP. Economists say that a good GDP growth rate is 2 to 3% year over year. Now, that has stayed consistent throughout Trump and Biden's terms. Biden inherited a negative 2.2% decline as a result of 2020 and the pandemic and turned that into 5.8% by the end of 2021. So now we see how Biden successfully recovered unemployment and the GDP within a year of his presidency. But now the most decisive factor of all, inflation. The Federal Reserve, or Fed, tries to keep inflation at 2% on average year over year. Inflation was well below this mark in 2014 and 2015 at 0.8 and 0.7% respectively. By 2019, it ballooned to 2.3%, which isn't bad. Remember, we want to be at about the 2% mark. However, in 2021, the inflation rate rose to 7%. Under Biden, that has dropped steadily to where it sits as of September 2024 at 2.4%. Only a 0.1 percentage point above where it was in 2019. Now, whatever you want to believe about Trump's policies and his handling of the pandemic and the role it played in how bad the economy was, the underlying fact is that in less than 1 term, Biden has lifted us out of the economic hell that the pandemic put us in. This is all important because I've heard from people who voted for Trump saying that they're upset about the economy. They're looking for change, and for some reason, they're turning to the man that is the source of their woes. The economy is better now than it was when Biden took office. Much better. But because it's not good enough, let's elect the man that fucked it up in the first place? Make it make sense. Okay, but what economic plan does Trump have to, quote, fix the economy? Well, he wants to eliminate federal income tax, which on the surface sounds nice. Everyone hates paying income tax. But let's take a look at what that actually means. First, that would mean the implementation of a national sales tax. Now, part of the reason we have tax brackets is very simple. The more money someone makes, the less percentage of total income that person spends. If a national sales tax is implemented, it's pretty easy to see why and how it would disproportionately affect the lowest earners, those who are spending higher percentages of their total income. The second part of Trump's plan is to increase tariffs on imports. A quick 3-second Google search will tell you why that's a bad idea. The more a country has to pay to import goods, the more that they're going to get charged, or I guess I should say the more that a country pays to export goods, the more that they're going to charge for those goods, and then those increased prices will be passed on to the consumer. Another consequence is that the other country will also increase tariffs, making it more expensive to export goods to other countries. That would create a trade war, deeply devalue our exports, and cripple the GDP. But it wouldn't stop there. Why? Because Trump plans to mass deport 20 million migrants. Agriculture and construction are two fields that the economy heavily relies on. These two industries almost exclusively hire migrant workers. Okay. I know that's a bit of an over-exaggeration. They don't exclusively or almost exclusively hire migrant workers, but a very good portion of migrant workers work in agriculture and construction. And the reason for that is natural-born citizens don't want to do these jobs. It's not that they're stealing jobs away from hardworking Americans. It's that there's nobody that wants to do these jobs. So if you take 20 million workers out of the workforce in one swoop, especially in two fields the economy relies heavily on that nobody wants to work in, that would create a massive labor shortage that would lead companies to be forced to either raise prices to offset lost production or shut down altogether, both of which are bad for consumers and bad for the economy. Now, let's look at the other major issue for voters. Democracy. We've heard from the left that democracy is on the ballot for 8 years now, and at times it can feel exhausting. Don't get me wrong, I was sitting here at the beginning of the year adamant that I would not be voting for Biden as a result of his policies in Gaza. I mean, hell, for my House race, I voted for Harambe because I'm sick and tired of not being taken seriously by my representative, Jason Crow. But when it came down to it, you had a man echoing Nazi rhetoric, calling for the genocide of the Palestinian people, who said on national television he would be a dictator for one day, chose a running mate that supports a national abortion ban, who, by the way, called him America's Hitler 4 years ago. He led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. He calls for the prosecution of journalists that say mean things about him. Versus a highly qualified, educated prosecutor that has a track record of fighting for human rights, who has proven she can be persuaded to push more aggressively for a ceasefire in Gaza. The choice was obvious. The right was able to successfully use transphobic rhetoric by saying allowing trans women in sports was somehow an attack on women's freedom, that affirmative action and DI programs that looked to level the playing field for disenfranchised Americans was somehow racist towards whites. And you can go all the way back to the pandemic rhetoric about vaccine mandates that weren't happening. And I'm just going to say this now. The rhetoric is bullshit. The way they have twisted minorities asking for equal rights into white men having to give up their rights to achieve this is sickening. And dumbass men who only listen to Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate or Joe Rogan or fucking Aiden Ross are dumb enough to buy into it. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are trust fund babies who built their wealth exploiting people dumb enough to fall for their bullshit. They're not concerned about the American people. They are concerned about their bottom dollar. I don't know what the future holds. I am genuinely worried for my LGBTQ plus and female friends. I'm genuinely concerned for the middle and lower class that would be hurt the most by these economic policies. This country failed women. This country failed trans folks. This country failed children. This country failed Latinos and Hispanics. Which, by the way, we need to have a deeply uncomfortable talk about the Latino vote in this country, but that's a topic for another day. But, I mean, what can we do now? After the dust is settled and all the votes are counted, what do we do now? And the answer is very simple. Organize. I mean it. Find a local cause that means a lot to you and get out and volunteer. Write to your representatives about the issues that matter to you. Attend town halls. Speak at them if you're able. Find like-minded people who are willing to protest with you, petition for change with you. If we take steps to become more actively involved in our communities, then by the midterms in 2026, we can hopefully be a little more optimistic about the future. I've left a ton of resources in the description to help you get started, from where to find causes to join to how to find out who your federal, state, and city officials are. Democracy dies when we stop fighting. I understand if you're tired. I'm tired. Trust me, I have stopped engaging with Trump voters because I'm so done trying to reason with these people and snap them out of their false sense of reality. But these people will never give up. And we can't either. And if you want your story told right here, please email me with the incredible work you are doing within your community, or even just a motivating or heartwarming story or message. Please, 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 please don't stop fighting. I will see you all in my next video. Take care.